Who is Bugs Potter? Shouldn't we be asking, when is Bugs Potter going to be republished? Hi everyone, I'm Jacob, I'm the Cowhat Librarian, and I'm going to try something a little different tonight. We're going to talk about something that hasn't been republished in quite a while, and it's one of the lesser universally loved, but nonetheless classics, written by Gordan Korman. It was originally published in 1980, and as far as I can tell, hasn't been republished since 1991. And we'll talk a bit about why in a moment. Anyway, with no further ado, the book is Who is Bugs Potter? Now, if you haven't read it before, Bugs Potter is an amazing drummer. Just ask him. He's been invited to participate in a pan-Canadian band, an orchestra assembled from Canadian high school students. And so he's in the big city, Toronto, along with his roommate for this trip, Adam Webb, a flute player who Bugs affectionately dubs his flute guy. Well, they're there to prepare for this big performance and do some sightseeing along the way, mostly educational sightseeing, museums and art galleries and science centers and the like. Bugs doesn't find those venues very interesting. He'd rather do his own thing. For example, Bibi Lene, an incredibly famous movie star, is staying in their hotel, and Bugs would really like to meet her. And so he comes up with various schemes to try to meet her. He also finds out that some of his favorite bands in the world are performing in nightclubs around Toronto while he's there. And so on a nightly basis, he and Adam put on fake mustaches and fake beards and sneak out to see a show. To Adam's horror, Bugs leaves him alone during the break in the act and doesn't come back to their table one night. And when the stage lights come on again and the band returns, there's Bugs playing drums for this famous band. He puts on an amazing performance, gains a whole new crowd of fans, and Adam has to grab him and whisk him away from there before they're caught. It's a lot of fun. There's a B story about some jewel thieves trying to steal this famous but supposedly cursed emerald from Bibi Lene as she tries to promote her newest movie, and some ongoing stuff where she doesn't know who Bugs is while he tries to make these romantic gestures towards her, but she hears about the commotion that Bugs Potter is generating as he performs at nightclub after nightclub, night after night, and how it upstages her movie premiere. And it's a lot of fun. The energy is sort of frenetic. Bugs Potter is a character for the ages, just caring about drumming and seeing everything else in the world in relation to that. Adam is one of the great wet blankets of all time who just plays a perfect straight man to Bugs and gets him out of all sorts of situations where he otherwise would have been caught by a crowd at these performances. It's great. It's still a lot of fun to read. So why hasn't it been republished in over 30 years? Here's why. Like so many stories written in that era, some of the plot points just really wouldn't hold up in an era of widespread cell phone and social media use. One of the big things that contributed to the hype about Bugs was a newspaper offering $100 to someone who got a clear photo of him, and everyone flooding to various nightclubs around Toronto trying to get a picture of him to win the money. And obviously nothing like that would fly these days. The idea that Bugs could have these escapades and could be a huge thing in Toronto and that his parents at home would never ever hear about it would be kind of a stretch these days. If something like this happened and their son's well-known nickname was being splashed all over Toronto, there's no way that a Facebook post shared by a friend of a friend wouldn't make it back to his mom and dad, or some other social media platform of sharing things. They'd hear about it. A lot of things to do with the character of BB Linnae are not so great these days either. Bugs's attempts to meet her that were intended as kind of goofy, maybe a little bit charming back in 1980, are kind of creepy and stalkerish now. Bugs does not take no for an answer, and that's not going to fly these days. It's not okay. His actions, if he were to take them in a book written today, the publisher would, I hope, rightfully say, no, people should not be acting this way. You should not be encouraging people to act this way. Rewrite these parts of the book. BB Linnae's cultural appropriation is kind of a problem too, because she passed herself off as an Eastern European movie star and when she was born in the Bronx. And there's a lot of stuff happening with that in the world right now. People claiming various ancestry to gain access to certain kinds of employment or academic funding. That just, it's very, very problematic, and I don't think her portraying herself in that way would fly these days. The other thing that's kind of a problem is the jewel thieves. They were fun, bumbling jewel thieves, and they helped tie into all the stuff Bugs was doing. But can anyone honestly imagine jewel thieves stealing one of the world's most well-known jewels and honestly being able to fence it and make money from it? I can't believe for a second that someone would do that these days, or that readers would find it believable. It's so unlikely that, yeah, it wouldn't fly. So I sort of understand why Who is Bugs Potter has not been republished in 30 years. But here's the follow-up question. Could it be? Korman has updated other works, notably the Bruno and Boots series of books at MacDonald Hall, where he's updated small things like the amounts of money, some of the terms of reference for Canadian things that would have changed over the years. And so could he update this to bring it into a modern era? And how would he do it? Well, I'm not Korman. I am not a master author. But I've got a couple ideas that he could try. Okay, first off, Bugs's parents have to be neutralized. They have to have a reason for not being able to hear about his escapades on social media. Because that's the biggie. It doesn't matter if his friends hear about it, it doesn't matter if his extended family hears about it, but his parents need to not hear about it until it's over. Well, the answer to that one was staring me right in the face. You see, Korman wrote his really, really good novel Unplugged and published it last year. And by the way, I filmed a video about it, and I highly recommend you watch that one as well if you're a Korman fan. Anyway, the story takes place at the Oasis Mind and Body Wellness Center, where guests have to turn in their personal electronic devices for the duration of their stay. It would quite literally be a one-off comment from Bugs to Adam about his parents staying at this place and being out of contact for the next couple of weeks while he's preparing to perform at this concert. It would be a quick one-off, a very simple way to explain why they wouldn't hear all the commotion about him on social media. And it would be a fun tie-in, implying that there is a Korman-verse where these different characters all exist in a shared real world. It would be sort of like Robin Sloan's book Sourdough, which I highly recommend. It's not a kid's book, but it was fantastic, where the main character stumbles across this bagel company with a really well-designed logo, and it was a callback to Sloan's earlier book, Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore, which is incredible too, where the main character previously worked at a company called New Bagel, and he worked very, very hard designing their logo and website and such. It was just a tiny little nod, but it tied their worlds together, and I think Korman could use the same approach here. Okay, next up, Bibi Lene has to change. She could still be a movie star, I suppose, but I think a better approach might be to make her some kind of social media influencer. It would explain why Bugs was trying to go after her, not because he's in love with her as a movie star, but because he's approaching her as a professional. He wants to know how to go viral. He wants to know how to attract hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. And it would be a really, really funny thing if he's making all these efforts to get to know her. Meanwhile, his activities are creating this viral sensation online that he's just unaware of. It would be a lot of fun to see that happen. And as a side effect, this would tie in nicely with the jewel thief storyline. Instead of them being jewel thieves, what if they were scammers? What if they were trying to get a hold of Bibi Lene's phone so that they could install malware that would steal, say, cryptocurrency from her? Maybe that's one of the things she's known for. It would be something that would be less traceable, give them every reason in the world to be breaking into her room and trying to find her and get a hold of this one-of-a-kind phone. And it would even tie in with the concert at the end where Adam finds, instead of this famous cursed emerald, a very, very distinct phone and case in with his flute at the concert. It would work great. And it would tie in so much stuff and modernize the story really, really nicely, I think. Now, the social media aspect might be a little trickier. I imagine Bugs could be not aware of his growing fame if the orchestra's conductor banned all electronic devices for the kids. As the book is already written, it implies that he wraps these kids in a cocoon to prepare them for this performance. And so it wouldn't be a big stretch to imagine that he would gather all their cell phones and electronic devices prior to the performance, or that their parents would have to sign a contract where they were not allowed to bring their devices or contact their parents unless there was an emergency, or something similar. Now, the whole people rushing to try to get a photo of Bugs Potter for the newspaper to win $100, I can wave off the idea that these nightclubs might be dark and it might be hard to get a good photo of him. What I think would be more likely in a modern version is that a particular media company would decide to try to cash in on Bugs' viral fame and would offer a reward to anyone who could get a selfie with Bugs while they were wearing that company's t-shirt, or record a TikTok alongside Bugs while wearing that company's hat, and turn it into a co-branding thing to leech off of his virality. That would make a lot of sense to me, and it would allow the other events that happened around it to just tie right into this new requirement. So, well, I'm not Korman, I'm not an author, I'm just a children's librarian. I personally think if he wanted, he could rework a couple things in Who is Bugs Potter and republish it for a modern audience. And I don't think it would wreck the story. But I'm not Korman, and he has enough on his plate with all the new things he's coming out with. But still, it'd be fun to see a new generation get to try this book out. If you want a modern equivalent to Who is Bugs Potter, I might recommend The Boys from the Back Row by Mike Jung. Matt and Eric are best friends, and they're in the school marching band together, and they love hanging out together and geeking out about a particular comic series they love. And then they find out that Eric is moving. His family's leaving and they won't get to hang out anymore. But as fate would have it, their marching band will be performing at a particular amusement park just a few blocks away from a convention center that's holding a major comic convention that has the creator of their favorite comic as a featured guest. and they have it all figured out. They will go off on this trip, go do their performance as a marching band, and during their free time when they're supposed to stay in the park, they'll head off those couple blocks, head to the convention center, and each get an autograph from their favorite comic artist. It was a lot of fun. It has very much the same energy as Who is Bugs Potter? And as a side benefit, I recorded a video talking all about it and why it's fun. And I'll have a link to that either in the description or down in the corner at some point here. With that, thanks for listening to me talk about Who is Bugs Potter. I truly think it's one of Korman's lesser appreciated classics from the 80s. And if there's a library near you that still has a copy around, I really recommend checking it out and reading it, or recommending it to the readers in your life. Now, if you do use your library and you value the materials, programs, and services it offers, I'd like to encourage you to take just a minute and tell the powers that be exactly that. Talk to a city councilor. Talk to the reeve of your county district. Talk to your MLA and tell them you value public libraries and what they offer. We're at a time where some libraries are having trouble finding sustainable funding to keep expanding their slate of materials, programs, and services they offer. And a few good words in the right ears could make a world of difference. And if by chance you are a library staff member, don't forget, watching my videos counts as professional development time. With that, thanks for watching, folks. By all means, please like, please subscribe, and please check back to see what else I have to talk about from the Cowhat Library. Thank you. Bye now.